Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Distance Learning. It is week 3. It is Tuesday, April 14th. I'm going to go over a few things today. I'm going to read from the book 56 through 60 on protists, animal-like protists in particular. And I'll go over a few things of interest, like I said, and then we'll move on. All right, so as you can see, the daily distance learning agenda today from Mr. Muller is to read pages 56 through 60 in the textbook. We moved on from fungus. Now we're on to protists. Go to Google Classroom to answer questions in the Google form. And this new thing here is option to work ahead. Watch the lecture video in Google Classroom, which you are today. I'm going to explain the option to work ahead. Pretty self-explanatory. We're going to try it out today. We're going to see how well this works. So I'm just going to show you that real quick. I think I want to go over yesterday's assignment and today's assignment. Then I'm going to read from then I'm going to go through the PowerPoint and then read from the book. So if I get to the point where the PowerPoint or reading from the book comes up and you want to skip that, you certainly can, but please listen to this. So as you can see, I have everything up for the week here. I just haven't posted it, but I will post it this morning. So the time you watch this video, this will be posted. So, yesterday, Mystery Science Monday, here's the Google form on fungus and the important roles. So we learned about fungus, and then Friday we learned about specifically what the important roles of fungus are in nature. So we can go over this real quick. How are living things other than plants and animals important to Earth? They're not important. They help produce medicines, food, oxygen, recycle important chemicals and nutrients that plants and animals need to survive. They look cool. I don't know why, or I don't know. Why don't you tell me? So the point of this question is we're on the unit about microorganisms, like you've heard me say 1,000 times. Viruses, bacteria, fungus, and now protists. They're basically invisible to our naked eye, right? We need a microscope. We need something special to see them unless they build colonies. Like you've definitely seen a bacteria colony. You've seen some fungus like mushrooms and some lichens. So you've seen some of these microorganisms. For the most part, they're really small. That doesn't mean they're not important. So, I hope that you saw that the answer here was they help produce medicines, food, oxygen, and recycle important chemicals and nutrients that plants and animals need to survive. So the big things on Earth need the little things to survive. But they also have to battle them. As we talked about, every one of these microorganisms causes diseases, and we have to use medicines and other things to fight them off. Here's cheese made from a mold or a type of fungus. Next question, read the apply it problem on page 71 and look at the pictures. How are the two dishes of bacteria affected by the mold? So you really need to look at the picture in the textbook to figure this one out, obviously. And this one was a really interesting problem. And we weren't going to do this if we were doing an experiment, but we were going to grow bacteria if we were at school. But this one is they grew bacteria in these dishes, A and B, and then this was an accident. It's one of the most famous discoveries in science and human history, really, because it helped lead to the discovery of penicillium. Penicillium, which is I'm allergic to, but it is used as an antibiotic, and the first ever antibiotic by Sir Alexander Fleming. And what he saw was, and you can't really see it well when I'm doing this, but he saw that there was this white mold growing in the middle of the bacteria. And eventually, over a few days, he saw that it had wiped out the bacteria colony. So he's thinking to himself, we have problems with bacteria and infections of bacteria. What is the mold doing? So he isolated and extracted the chemical that the mold uses to fight the bacteria, and then he developed that into an antibiotic. And then we've used mold and other funguses and things to create many of our antibiotics. Some turkey mushrooms decomposing an old tree trunk here. Do you think the two dots of mold are the same type of fungus? Hopefully you realize that they are not, because one of them, killed a lot more bacteria than the other, so they probably are not. What the heck is this? This seems like a mistake. What the heck? I just went over this. Okay. Okay. Hopefully this is oh, this distance learning is a lot of fun, isn't it, folks? Hopefully this didn't come up on yours, but for some reason last name first name has been. Anyways, which type of fungus causes disease? There are some funguses that don't cause disease in humans, but there are some that do. My wrestlers out there, you guys know, of a few that you really have to clean the mats after people are wrestling on them so you don't spread these fungal diseases. They're very infectious. What important things do many fungi share with bacteria? Well, there's a few things, and hopefully, when you read the textbook, you figured it out. These microorganisms are unique, so they're not the same, right? Or else they would all be under one name. But they do share some things with each other that make them similar, right? Here's a picture of Sir Alexander Fleming, the scientist who accidentally discovered penicillin and the antibiotic. Should you eat any mushroom you find growing on the woods? The answer to this is no. Unless you are somebody who's an expert, they go and hunt mushrooms and they know what they're doing. But even then, those people do not eat any mushroom they go and see in the woods, right? Some of these mushrooms can make you very sick and hurt you. Some examples, you got your molds here, you got your mushrooms, you got all the different types of fungus here. Here's a wonderful picture of the bacteria growing and then the fungus in the middle kind of clearing out its path, not really affected by the bacteria. Here's a classic case of ringworm here, fungal infection. What is like an example of, remember what we talked about in chapter 2 this year about living things in relationships? Okay, I was informed by a parent that this answer may not be entirely true, but we're going to go with that they're both mutualistic, meaning if you remember the 4 types of relationships we talked about, mutualistic is they both benefit. So the algae and the fungus are benefiting in this relationship when they form lichen. The parent told me that there's some of these that are parasitic in nature and stuff like that, and some that are commensalism in nature. But if you remember the other ones, of course, commensalism is one species benefits, the other is unharmed. Parasitism, of course, one is benefited and the other is greatly harmed. And then predator-prey, whoops, did I say both species are harmed there? That's an accident. One species for sure is definitely harmed. This is another one where one species benefits, the other one's harmed in a way that they're killed. How have fungi help people fight disease? Okay, right. We talked about how they are used to make antibiotics. Use the classic example of lichen. And what forms are fungi eaten as food? Okay, hopefully you know yeast is a fungus. Okay, used to make bread and molds to make cheeses, and some mushrooms can be eaten. What are the 5 main roles fungi play in nature? Those are on pages 70, 73, so hope you figure that out. Environmental recycling, fighting off diseases, making foods, causing diseases, and actually helping plants grow larger. So lots of good stuff there. Okay, so today is going to be this one, protists, reading 56 through 60. And I'm going to start doing these individually. I started grouping them together, but I realized that when you guys wanted to turn them in as quizzes or assignments, it made it just more difficult. And there's no need to turn in a lecture or turn in like material I'm giving you. Only need to turn in assignments or quizzes. So I'm going to put them all individually. So you see, here will be my update video and talking about today in the reading. Here's the Google form for today on the protist reading. Here's a Google form for tomorrow's protist reading. Here's a Google form for Thursday's protist reading. And then Friday's assignment is you're going to, kind of what you did for the virus, you're going to pick a protist, you're going to research it, and then fill out the boxes for me. Okay. And again, this is just in case if you didn't have the digital pages for the textbook. Okay. So that's all stuff. I'm going to put that up today so then you can kind of work ahead, but please do that in order. It doesn't matter what order you read the protists in, whether you do animal-like, plant-like, or fungus-like, it really does not matter. But probably try to save the Friday assignment for last because you're going to pick a protist after you've read all about them and do that. Okay, so I'm going to have the PowerPoint up, but I'm going to read from the textbook here real quick. We're going to skip My Planet Diary. real quick pause here. Okay. Let's start page 57. What are the characteristics of animal-like protists? The beautiful and diverse organisms in figure 1 below are protists. Protists are eukaryotes, meaning what? They have a nucleus inside their cell, just like fungus, just like plants, just like animals. Bacteria are prokaryotes. They do not have a nucleus in their cell. They also don't have the other things in their cell like endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, stuff like that. So protists are more similar to fungus, animals, and plants than they are bacteria. However, protists, even though they're eukaryotes, they cannot be classified as animals, plants, or fungi. So they're in their own little separate, unique category. The word that best describes protists is diverse. For example, most protists are unicellular, meaning they are just one cell, makes up the whole living thing. But some are multicellular. Some are heterotrophs, meaning they have to go get their food. But some are also autotrophs, meaning they can make their own food. So far, these guys have been the most diverse. Okay, they are eukaryotes, but some are uni and some are multicellular. Some are heterotrophs, some are autotrophs. And there are actually some that are both auto and heterotrophs at the same time. Some protists cannot move while they zoom around through their habitats. However, all protists are eukaryotes and all protists live in watery surroundings. Recall that eukaryotes are cells in which a genetic material is contained in a nucleus. Because protists are so different from each other, scientists divide them into 3 categories based on the characteristics they share with organisms in other kingdoms. Remember, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. King Philip cried out, for goodness sake. Remember how you classify every living thing? They're put in a kingdom, so what they're saying is at the top there, they're sharing things with other kingdoms. These categories are, some protists are animal-like, some are plant-like, and some are fungus-like. What image pops into your head when you think of an animal? Most people immediately associate animals with movement. In fact, movement is often involved with an important characteristic of animals, obtaining food. All animals that obtain food by eating other organisms are heterotrophs. Like animals, and here's the key here, animal-like protists are heterotrophs, can move most can move to get their food. But unlike animals, animal-like protists, or what we call them protozoans, are unicellular. So they move like animals. That's why they're called animal-like protists. But they are all unicellular, where animals are mostly multicellular. Almost entirely, right? Okay, next page. We'll go through these really quickly because there's a lot of information. Protozoans with pseudopods. Remember we talked about pseudopods earlier this year? The amoeba in figure 2, which there's going to be a video in the question form today, and one of them we've watched, and it's about the amoebas moving around and eating, belongs to the first group of protozoans called sarcodines. I don't really need you to know that. Sarcodines move and feed by forming pseudopods. I need you to know pseudopods, though. Pseudopods are temporary bulges of the cell. The word pseudopod means false foot. Pseudopods form when cytoplasm flows towards one location and the rest of the organism follows. Pseudopods enable sarcodines to move away from bright light because, sarcodines also use pseudopods to trap food by extending one on each side of the food particle. When the 2 pseudopods join together, the food is trapped inside the cell as shown in figure 2. Protozoans that live in freshwater have a problem. If excess water builds up inside the cell, the amoeba will burst. But amoebas have a contractile vacuole, a structure that collects and expels excess water from the cell. And again, if they're under the light too long, under the sun or whatever, they can dry them out and they can die from that too. So it's important that they move. Protozoans with flagella. We've talked about flagella this year. Second group of protozoans are the flagellates. Flagellates are protozoans that use long whip-like flagella to move. Some live inside the bodies of other organisms. One type of flagellate lives in the intestines of termites. When the termite eats wood, the flagellate breaks down into sugars that the termite can eat. So they help the termite out. That's the same thing with us. We have bacteria that are good inside of our stomach that help us break down things and give us nutrients that we won't otherwise be able to access. In return, the termite protects the flagellate. Sometimes, however, a protozoan harms its host. For example, the famous parasite, Giardia, shown in figure 3, is deposited in fresh water in the wastes of wild animals. When people drink water containing Giardia, these flagellates attach to their intestines where they feed and reproduce. The people develop an intestinal condition commonly called hiker's disease. So it's very important that if you're out in the woods, if you're hiking, if whatever, you don't drink water from, even if it looks clean, you don't drink water from a pond, you don't drink water from a river, you don't drink water from a lake, because you could get, pretty bad sickness, and part of that has to do with Giardia, which is animal-like Protist. Okay, next page, last page, no, second last page. Protozoans with cilia. Third group protozoans are the ciliates. The ciliates have structures called cilia. These, and we've talked about cilia this year. These hair-like projections beat like a wave-like motion, moving the organism. Cilia also sweep food into the organism. Notice that the paramecium in figure 4 has 2 contractile vacuoles that collect and expel water from the cell. It also has 2 nuclei. Interesting. The large nucleus controls everyday tasks of the cell. The small nucleus functions reproduction. The paramecia usually reproduce asexually by binary fission, right? They make the copy split into 2 equal cells. Paramecia, but sometimes paramecia reproduce by conjugation, so very similar to bacteria. Conjugation, where they exchange a little bit of genetic information. This occurs when 2 paramecia join together and exchange some of the genetic material. Sometimes I get ahead of myself when I talk. Okay. Last one, protozoans that are parasites. Fourth group, protozoans are characterized more by the way they live than by the way they move. They are all parasites that feed on the cells and body fluids of their hosts. These protozoans move in a variety of ways. Some have flagella and some depend on hosts for support. One even produces a layer of slime that allows it to slide from one place to place. Many of these parasites have more than one host. Plasmodium, very important you know this, shown in figure 5, is a protozoan that causes malaria, a disease of the blood. 2 hosts are involved in Plasmodium's life cycle, humans and a species of mosquitoes found in tropical areas. These diseases are spread when a mosquito bites a person with malaria, becomes infected, and then bites a healthy person. Symptoms of malaria include high fevers that alternate with severe chills. These symptoms can last for weeks and disappear, only reappear a few malaria can be fatal. So again, it's important to know that mosquitoes, as annoying and awful as they are, they're vectors, they're hosts that spread the disease. They are not themselves the cause of the disease. It is microorganisms, viruses, or in this case, a protist named Plasmodium that actually is inside the mosquito and then goes into the human, into their blood when the mosquito bites them. Malaria is a very, very terrible disease. It kills around 400 to 500,000 people a year. So there's also another video I put in that you can watch that is going to be interesting about the life cycle of Plasmodium and then how they're looking at ways of kind of getting rid of Plasmodium potentially. Okay, last page here, 60 that we'll read today. Suppose you fill a container with a culture of amoebas, then you shine a bright light on one half the container. Number 1, predict. How do you think the amoebas respond to the bright light? Draw your prediction in the empty container below. Hopefully you drew or you didn't draw that all of the amoebas kind of went to the right or the far side away from the light. Okay. How were the amoebas able to respond to light? They used the pseudopods. Remember, the amoebas were the first ones we talked about for the animal-like Protist. They use amoebas, or they use pseudopods to move away from the light. They also use the pseudopods to eat their food. Why do you think it is important for amoebas to respond to bright light? Because they could get hot, they could dry up, and if that happens, they will die. Okay. Let's move on to the PowerPoint, and then we'll be done for today. So again, vocab for just the animal-like ones. We've talked about just a few of these. The other ones we'll get to with plant-like. Okay, so algae and pigment are plant-like, and spore is going to be fungus-like. But we talked about protist, protozoan, pseudopod, contractile, vacuole, and cilia today. So the 3 types of protists. There's animal-like, plant-like, and fungus-like. A protist means it's any eukaryote that cannot be classified as a plant, animal, or fungus. So their own unique group. Number 1, the characteristics of animal-like protists. They're heterotrophs, meaning they have to go get their food. Most of them can move to get their food. And they're protozoans, which means they're one cell. They're made of one cell. 4 groups of them we talked about. You need to know those. Pseudopods. Okay, they have the false foot. What we just talked about, they can move around with it. They can surround the cells with it of things that they eat. Flagella, they have the little tail. Cilia, they have all the little hairs around their body to move and to collect food. And then there's the parasites, which is the Plasmodium one we talked about. We don't really need to go over this too much. This is the amoeba one. Okay, here's the flagellate or the flagellum. There's a cilia one, and it's all the same things that we did. Okay, and then we'll do plant-like protists next time we do this. But just remember to do your ed puzzles or any assignments from the past. I found a way to sync everybody from Google Classroom to ed puzzle, so this will be set up like this now. So hopefully I can just link this here, and instead of everybody going to first hour, a lot of you going to first hour, it all should just be here. It should be easier for both of us. So hopefully we can test that out this week. And just remember to, you can work ahead this week, but, don't overwhelm yourself. That doesn't mean you need to get everything done today. And don't forget, if you missed anything from last week, dissection questions and video from Friday on fungus, ed puzzles on fungus. Okay. We had Was a Wednesday. I'm going to do that again this week. Okay, we had, a few other things. There's extra credit as well for viruses. And so that's Tuesday, April 14th. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to talk to you about. I can't think of anything right now, but you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy the rest of your week.